Hey there, everybody. It's Renessa Boley Layne, and welcome to another conversation on creating your perfect work. We are in the middle of our Love and Work Summit. So if you have missed any part of the interview series, go back and catch up because whether you are married, single, dating, coupled up, craving love, traumatized, and running as far away from love as you possibly can, there is something for you in this series. And so we're transforming not only your intimate relationships, but how you leverage your love life to get highly paid doing work you love. And so today we are going to talk about the power of alignment. And women go into dating and marriage with all kinds of goals, all kinds of values, all kind of wish lists that they want in another person. And I think one of the most undervalued elements, however, is this idea of alignment and being in alignment with another person. And alignment is what creates flow and ease in relationship. Alignment can lead to shared visions for your success and your family. Alignment can minimize all the conflict and stress, and which that maximizes all the good stuff, right? And the good stuff is it creates all the physical, mental, and emotional capacity that you need to thrive in your career, your business, or that mission that you were born to lead. And so this fun couple who is sharing the screen with me, fun couple that's sharing the screen with me is none other than Scott and Emily McKay. Scott and Emily are professional dating and relationship coaches. They're authors, they're adventure travelers, they're conference speakers, they're media personalities, they're podcast hosts. They do a lot of things between them. But together they founded X and Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. And X and Y Communications focus on equipping and empowering men and women to find love, live exciting lives, and go from good to great in their relationships. They reach over 300,000 people all over the world through their newsletters, through their podcasts, through their social media. So I will put a plug, become 300,001 because they have really, really great content. They're authors of 10 books between them. They've been featured in over 400 media outlets worldwide, including MTV, ABC, NBC, CBS, Men's Health, Elite Daily, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal. And they've traveled, this is the really cool part, they've traveled to well over 100 countries together, and they proudly world school their two youngest children. So that's all the kind of buttoned up stuff about them. But here's what I admire about Scott and Emily most. They are the epitome of alignment. And so when I met them, I always think about with speakers, okay, what value do I think that they bring to the audience, and where do they shine, and where do I think you can learn something yummy from them? And with them, they are just the epitome of alignment. They've got aligned values, they've got aligned goals. They genuinely actually enjoy each other. And you will see that in the conversation as well. And they've been very deliberate about designing a life that they love. Plus, Scott really does think he's a comedian. So I think you're going to enjoy the conversation in that regard. But with that being said, I just want to welcome you both, Scott and Emily, to the conversation. I'm delighted to have you and really looking forward to diving in.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And like true world travelers, we're already fighting over the center armrest.
Yeah.
While we're talking.
It's mine.
Well, she has to have it, or else the whole trip will be miserable, right?
Yeah, that's true. Happy wife, happy life, as they say.
Like this, the whole trip. Well,
So,
we're pleased to be here, and we're happy to meet your audience, Renessa, and talk to them about whatever you like. We're an open book, sort of.
all right, we're gonna nail it. So, one of your websites is titled deservewhatyouwant.com. And I think that's a really interesting URL. And I know that there's a meaning behind it, especially as we think about dating and marriage and relationships and all of that. Tell us what that means and where it came from.
Well, it's really interesting. To me, it seems obvious that if you want to have a great relationship with someone else, you need to represent the kind of person the person of your dreams is also looking for. And I thought of this idea of deserving what you want, and I thought to myself, well, that's really a trite way to put it. I'm sure that's been hashed and rehashed a billion times already. And I Googled it, and it had been used once in the history of the internet by one person. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then, of course, as I did more research into the kind of dating advice, especially the quick dating advice, usually targeted for women, frankly. It was get what you already deserve. Just make this man do this thing for you. Here's how to get the person to do your bidding and to be the kind of person you want to be. And very rarely any talk about self work or your part in the matter or why anybody would want to be in a relationship with me. Uh,
Yeah.
it was mostly about here's how to get what you want. And of course, in a relationship, it takes two to tango. And we found it goes a lot better when both partners are the kind of partner the other partner is actually looking for. So there you go.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
I agree with that.
the domain was available, of
It was
course.
available.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
I just don't
available.
want to ever set it. Yeah.
You know, we often hear that marriage and relationships take work, right? Oftentimes we hear that it takes hard work, but y'all have a very different perspective on that. You guys say often that a happy, healthy relationship shouldn't feel like work. Why do you say that?
Well, when the relationship is working the way it's supposed to, where both people are giving and caring for each other, it's not work. I don't have to suffer through the relationship trying to figure out how, to make this work, how to make him do things my way, or how I can, somehow walk on eggshells and avoid, the pitfalls of, the screaming and yelling and whatnot. That's a lot of work. I mean, we've seen a lot of, everyone's seen it on social media. Happy anniversary to my loved one. We have suffered through bad times, but we're still together. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking that's so different from how we see things. It should be a joy to be together. I enjoy being with my best friend. None of us ever refer to our best friend as work.
Yeah.
I have never met this best friend yet. I'm wondering who they are. No, I'm obviously joking. Now, my wife and I are best friends. And, a lot of times people look for a fixer upper in a relationship. And I think a lot
Hmm.
of times that comes from desperation. Like, I got to
Okay.
get married or I need someone in my life. And we don't think it's a great idea to save the world by marrying someone. We think it's a great idea to meet someone you genuinely like and get along with, and then maybe go save the world together as a team.
Mhm.
The charitable work shouldn't be marrying somebody.
Yeah.
So, men and women, we also believe, are designed to be in partnership. There's a lot of thought and talk out there about how men and women are adversarial towards each other. And a lot of times we talk about certain things being a social construct. Some people even think men and women are social constructs.
Mhm.
But, the social construct in our mind is that men and women are supposed to not like each other and be adversarial. That's a social construct.
Yeah.
And it's not one that fits the divine design of anything. I mean, there's no reason for men and women to even exist as men and women apart from being in partnership because, otherwise the human race will cease to exist in 100 years. So us being together and being in partnership, it shouldn't be work to stay together and enjoy each other if we've married the right person and we're both sane and we both have each other's best interests at heart. However, I would be quick to add that that doesn't mean life is a bed of roses for us. We've had extremely tough, challenging things happen
Yeah.
in our family because life is what it is. Life's
Yeah.
not a bed of roses all the time, but there's nobody I'd rather go through the tough times with than this little chick right here. That's basically the key. I'm glad she's here for those tough times. I'm glad we go
Yeah.
through those tough times together in life.
It's interesting that you say that because this is the second marriage for both of you, right? And I find it interesting. What I find interesting about your relationship is that you've been very deliberate about designing a life that you love. And obviously, your first go around, you learn lots of things in terms of selection and, all of that. Um, but, many couples, we spend so much time, we're working, we're toiling, and maybe they're working and toiling to say, buy a house and send the kids to school or get ready for retirement. But and none of that's inherently bad. That's all, wise, prudent, the whole nine. But they're often not living a life they love. They're living a life that's been deferred. Like we're storing up for something down the road. And in the process, the quality of that life can be like, well, whatever, we're saving for retirement, we're getting the kids through, wherever. What's been your approach to kind of the intersection of work, of life, of family, of being present? because you really are very deliberate about how you've created your life together.
Well, we set a mission of what is important in our life. We want to make sure that we keep the family bonds strong, that we hang out together, and that we try not to neglect that. It's easy to get into a rut, and you wake up, you do your everyday routine and go to bed and do everything the same the next day. And it's easy to get into a sleepy state and start to feel depressed, and just starts this little snowballing effect. And so we've tried to be very self-conscious about that and try to avoid that from happening. Even, like you said, life happens. We're trying to save up for retirement, and, you have certain goals. Some people try to save for, a house and different things, but just the little things, if we can, take one day out of the month and spend a couple hours, maybe walking in the park and hanging out together. It feels like work sometimes because, it's out of a routine. It's taking yourself out of that rut. And, if you're in a car and you're trying to get out of that mud and you can't get out, it takes work.
That brings back some memories.
Force yourself out of it. And so if you make the effort to do that, it's actually, when you finish that activity, you're like, oh, I'm so glad we did that. And you feel refreshed and your batteries are recharged and you didn't realize you actually needed it. But we actually purposely make it a point to try to keep doing that constantly.
And it's not that we don't ever have a mundane moment in our life. We have plenty of them. I mean, the Facebook highlight reel is not
Absolutely
a snapshot of our entire life. But, one of the things you mentioned is that the American dream is to toil away to get a house and have 2 cars and 2.5 children and a dog and work 50 weeks a year for 2 weeks off and
Don't forget a cat.
And a cat and claw your way up the corporate ladder till you have the deferred life plan someday, like you just mentioned, where you retire. But that's not the only option. It's just we're kind of told that. And so what we've objectively done is build a lifestyle business where we can work from anywhere, where we're doing what we love, set our own hours, and we world school our kids. So we take our kids with us. So it means if we want to get in the RV and go to a national park on a Wednesday afternoon in April, we can do it. We can travel overseas with our kids. I mean, COVID threw a wrench in that for us, but hopefully we're going to get back out there soon and do more and really make our own schedule. And there's a lot of freedom. The value there is in freedom, not in in even building an empire or collecting millions and millions of dollars. It's about really living the life we want to live together and spending as much time together as we can. A lot of people are absentee, they travel. During COVID, people were like, how can you two stand to be cooped up in the house all day together? And we just kind of looked at each other and went, there's nothing new here. We work side by side every day because, wait for it, we actually like each other, and so there are options. You decide the lifestyle you want to build, and then you don't have to quit your day job right now. I mean, everybody kind of dreams of walking into the boss's office and giving him the finger and take this job and shove it.
Yeah.
But it's not a 1-minute event. And really, it's a bad idea to burn your bridges with anybody and be angry about it. It took us about 9 months to ramp up to where we hit critical mass and could replace our income and start doing what we wanted to do, the lifestyle we wanted to have, if we were to quit the day jobs and put 100% focus on to doing what we're doing now. And we hit that critical mass, didn't take too long, but it wasn't like we decided to do this tomorrow. Yep. So it's something that you can definitely start putting a plan of action towards, building a strategy, and then staying actionable on it and moonlighting a little bit to get it done. And then the next thing you know, you're there and you can start doing what you really dreamed of doing.
Yeah. I mean, what I like about that point is it's this idea of kind of designing with the end in mind. And I think for many of us going into relationships, for many folks going into relationships, they really haven't thought through what they want. Like, you really haven't thought through what kind of life do I really want to live? and you kind of get in this current of the river, and everybody's going in a certain direction, and you kind of go to school, and maybe you go to grad school, and then you go get a professional job, and then maybe you get promoted. Like it's this kind of pathway that folks get into, and you don't really think about it consciously. I think the younger generation probably has a slightly different perspective on how they look at life, but for the Gen Xers and so on, you kind of get in that space and you go down that river, and then the other person, you marry them or you do whatever, and now y'all are just kind of going down the river. And then at some point, you have different ideas around what you might even want out of your life, or how you want to experience it. Or do I want to world school my kids? Or do we put them in kindergarten and they're in the K through, 8, program, and then and so then you don't even have those conversations because you never had those conversations with yourself. And so then it's like, how do I broach this? Because we have a contract now. If you're married, the person may not have signed up for that contract, And so now how do you have this different conversation around how you want to live? Because we've got this mortgage, and we've got 2 cars, and we're in this school district, and we're blah, 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 blah. And
Now we're
so
getting to know each other.
now we're getting to know each other,
There's
right?
something very ironic about what you just said. If you take our whole context, the context writ large of what we've been talking about here, you're absolutely right. Most people have no idea what they want in a relationship, because most people nowadays have not decided who the heck they are.
Yeah.
Like what do I believe? What is my core belief system? Going along with that, I used to say, you want to be a man of character. And I realized, my goodness, that could mean 3 different things. There's good character, bad character, which I thought was pretty much implied there. There's also no character.
Mm-hmm.
No character means, whatever. You need me to believe something? Fine. You need me to believe something in this context? Sure, whatever. And then in this context, I'll flip-flop and be someone else. Yeah. So a lot of people nowadays really don't even see the purpose of standing up for anything that they've thought through on their own. They'll just kind of believe whatever frame of mind belongs to the people who are most likely to accept them socially.
Yeah.
So then what logically follows from that is you have no idea who you're looking for in a partner. People are like, well, I guess I'll just find someone hot, or I'll find someone, I know them when I meet them, or they'll come sweep me off my feet. But if you don't know who you are, you can't possibly know who you're looking for. And I mentioned there was something that was incredibly ironic about that. Well, what did we just talk about like 10 minutes ago? Everybody also is like, entertain me. Give me what I want. I'm here so you can meet my needs. You as a partner are here for me, to give me what I want instead of me deserving what I want. Well, man, what a recipe for failure, right? You don't even know who you are or what you want, yet this person's supposed to know what it is and give it to you while sacrificing all their own. No wonder we have such knotted up relationships, if at all. No wonder so many people aren't even interested in relationships anymore. Yeah. The cart is before the horse officially.
You can't communicate your needs and wants if you haven't structured that in your head yet.
I mean, it's hard to ask your husband to please listen when you're, when your process is,
Yeah. And so we make the parallels between love and work here because the patterns are very, very similar. And so in your world, you're having those conversations with people as it relates to their love life, whether they're dating and trying to select, or they're in a marriage and they're trying to fix it or make it better, whatever. The same happens in my world when it comes to, career. Women come in, they've been in their careers 15, 20 years. They're bored, they're burned out, they're unfulfilled. They have no idea what they want to do next. And the vast majority, although they're really successful on paper, they're really successful on the outside, most have not been deliberate and intentional about the decisions that they've made in their career. And so the idea of taking a whiteboard and designing what, April Smith version 3.0 looks like is so daunting, because as they look through the kind of the reels of their life, they've never approached life from a place of design. They've never approached life from a place of agency. Yes, they've taken risk, and yes, they've advocated for themselves, they've got talent, all of that, but really kind of hand on heart saying, what do I want out of this? And am I willing to take the hard stand and make the contrarian decisions and all of that to create a work that I love, it's parallel to, have you done that to create a life that you love? And so then when we get in situations where I've created this life, I've made these commitments, I love this person. It's not like, woe be unto me. I love this person, but now how do I make that U-turn, or how do I make a shift, or how do I actually kind of navigate this differently to be able to get a different outcome based on the woman that I am now? And so
okay, go
the
ahead.
parallels are there.
That's an excellent point. And I was just thinking, sometimes we change as we grow older.
We
Our
do.
likes and dislikes change also. So those are the little wrenches that get thrown in there. And we've just learned to grow together. We've had different ideas and goals when we met. I mean, I never thought of doing BMXing and having, that be a competition and going to nationals and worlds and state races and whatnot. That never was a thought. But I'd always dream of, having an RV and traveling in that thing. And that was the furthest thing from your thought. And here we are sharing that with each other.
Yeah. I want to take this question a little bit deeper, because absolutely, as you go through any relationship, you will have different ideas. You'll see things differently. You may agree on it, you may not agree on it. And there's some things that are just, it's not a deal breaker. I might like red, you might like blue. We can be misaligned on that issue. But then there are other issues that, if you're not aligned, you might be in a world of hurt um, in that relationship. Doesn't mean that either one of the people are bad people. It just means that you end up with a tremendous amount of conflict if you're not aligned either in your value, your viewpoint, how you see the world, or even aligned in how you approach your differences, right? And so for folks who are listening in and they're dating, this idea of what do we need to be aligned about becomes kind of selection criteria, right? If someone doesn't fight well, or if they don't fight fairly, and you're noticing that in your dating relationship, maybe that's something where we got to get aligned on how we respect each other in conflict. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. But then in your marriage, there are elements that, as we are doing life together, right? We're doing the highs, we're doing the lows and all of that. Where must we be aligned in and how we approach this relationship, such that we're able to successfully navigate all of the variety and uncertainty that comes with life? And it's kind of that deeper question that I'm trying to get to the root of, for people to think about, because sometimes we're majoring in the minors, right? I'm upset because you don't see this how I see it. That's a minor. But are we aligned in how we approach? Are we aligned in how we respect one another? Are we aligned in how we can appreciate someone else's idea and consider it, even if we ultimately don't agree with it? Doesn't mean that I got to make you wrong, whatever. So are there elements that you've noticed in working with your clients and in your own relationship across 17 years and all of that, where you're like, these are some of the pillars that you want to make sure that you're aligned on if you're going to be a successful couple?
Well, if you're single and you're dating, ignoring those red flags when those alignments are really drastically off, they're not going to get better in the marriage. So
Okay, exactly.
they don't get better in that
You're
regard.
pissing each other off now. It's not going to get any better after you're married. No.
But when you're in a relationship and things shift or changed, or you kind of, something came up and you realize, hey, there's a little bit of a difference here, or maybe perception of a difference. Sometimes it's just perception. I think it's huge to reassure each other that the biggest alignment is we're dedicated to each other. I'm here to stay, and I'm determined to make this work. Let's talk this out. Let's hear it. Tell me your points. Let me see how you think. Here's how I see it. Blah blah blah.
Well, I have three areas of compatibility that I think every couple, if they want to have a good, solid relationship, needs to be in alignment. The first one is getting each other. You have to kind of be able to understand what's going on in another person's head. They have to be one of you. They have to be on your team. You have to be able to know what they're thinking and be able to communicate honestly and transparently, because you trust each other. And that's connection. Some would call it chemistry up front, but chemistry tends to be a little more sexual, and wow, we have this amazing thing that we're trying to make work.
It's heartfelt.
Right. Whereas this is more like, I finally met someone who gets me. I finally understand, this person understands me. They know how I tick. The
Mm.
second one is optimism.
Mm.
I believe in the good in this person. I believe in
Mm-hmm.
good things are going to happen. Maybe not to the point of being Pollyanna-ish about it.
Yeah.
But certainly, I had a guy who came to me and wanted me to coach him. And he said, all women leave you. And I'm like, well, I guess ultimately we all leave each other because nobody's immortal. And I suppose she could leave. Maybe she will. But the difference between me and you, I told him, is I don't spend all day worrying about it or angry about it. And it hasn't happened. And it hasn't happened yet. So we have this pessimism that, all men are jerks and they're all going to cheat and we all want one thing. Can you find me a good husband? Well, that's not a good foundation. But I believe that she's inherently a good person who wants to do right and treat me right. And
Yeah.
she believes the same about me. And so, when someone's gone for an hour, when they said they would be gone for 30 minutes, we don't think the worst, that they're out cheating on me or whatever. I mean, I may get a little worried and gosh, I hope nothing bad happened.
Yeah.
But in terms of who she is, I'm thinking, okay, well, she found a great deal somewhere and she's shopping a little longer. She needed to get gas or something. But I know people who are inherently pessimistic towards all that stuff and still trying to balance a relationship. The third one is generosity. We talked about how people are almost being programmed nowadays. Well, goodness gracious, it's not even almost. It's like whisper 3 simple things into this person's ear and they'll give you whatever you want. That's not generosity. That's taking. And, we could talk about narcissism and selfishness and all the buzzwords and gaslighting and all those things that everybody loves to talk about nowadays. But it's amazing how many people who complain about being gaslit are often the gaslighters because everybody's so self-focused.
Yeah.
I like doing things for her. She likes doing things for me. If I just get what I demanded of her, 1 + 1 would equal 1. If we give to each other 1 + 1 = 3, 5, 7, or 10, we'll get all these wonderful benefits of being together that we never demanded or even expected.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can add to that the whole train of basic compatibilities, like who did you vote for? What God do you pray to? How do you believe in spending money or saving money or balancing? How do you want to raise kids? Do you even want to have kids? I mean, I just talked to someone who moved to a different city for a woman, then found out she doesn't want to have any kids. And he wants like a bunch of them. How does that not get talked about? Well, I think I've already explained that, right? So there are these measures of compatibility, but I think people basically ultimately know that. I mean, if you are she's a vegan and you're a meatitarian, you're probably going to have to eat 2 dinners or not get married.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to, people come with this rather selfish mindset of I'll change them. They can't be serious. Like she still actually believes in God and goes to church on Sunday. Well, I'll fix that. No, you're not going to fix that because that's who they are. That's a very arrogant assumption. And I think couples should avoid doing that. Indeed, people also, this is what I would kind of put as the mic drop on top of all that, is some people just aren't very nice people. Optimistic people, generous people tend to believe everybody else is optimistic and generous too, which is why they often open themselves up to being manipulated and bad things happening to them. Great let's hear it for being optimistic and generous and being optimistic and generous together. But I have traits that I call being, connectable traits. And they're neither masculine nor feminine. They're simply traits that if you can check off these boxes, you'll get along with more people and live life more skillfully. Like nobody likes a liar. Everybody likes people who tell the truth. Nobody likes lazy people. Everybody likes people who, want to get things done. Nobody likes late people. They like people who show up. Everybody likes sane people, not insane people. Everybody likes people who, make good decisions, not bad decisions. There's certain things that if you do in life, you're going to be much, much better off. Optimistic instead of generous. I mean, optimistic instead of pessimistic, these Debbie Downers. I mean, I suppose those people could hang out together. But in terms of people who aren't broken, there's an undeniable set of traits that if we exhibit them,
Yeah.
we'll be better at winning friends and influencing people. So when couples go on dates and they check out most of those boxes, then they're inherently decent people. Then from there, you can kind of have much clearer visibility into those areas of compatibility that I discussed a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
I would add
Yeah.
to that is eliminating fear.
Mm.
Fear if I speak up and actually share my thoughts and ideas and what I really want, because if I do, maybe he or she won't quite agree with it, and maybe I can talk them into it later. But that would be the fear of what if they don't, and then I have to start over.
Yes,
Mhm.
right. I'm not going to bring this up because, oh my God, what if there's a deal breaker?
Mhm.
Then I'd have to go start all over again. But if there's a
Mhm.
deal breaker, that's why it's called a deal breaker. It's better to
Mhm.
know this sooner than later.
But that's the
Yeah.
lack of appreciating that compatibility is so important to the joy in a relationship.
Yeah. And she mentioned fear.
Mhm.
A lot of people, and I'm coming along to believe it myself, really, regardless of what your religious belief, it's really amazing how the opposite of love is fear.
Mhm.
Anything that's fear-based is the perversion of love.
Yeah.
If you believe that, the less you fear something, the more you're able to love it. And couples are supposed to be in love, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
That's an interesting perspective. Because I imagine that, because I see so many parallels, because I'm looking at this through the lens of love and work. And oftentimes Tony Robbins will say, how you do anything is how you do everything. And while that's not always the case 100%, there's lots of parallels and patterns.
I'm
And
not a
so
pro basketball player because I'd suck at
right,
everything. Yeah.
right. But there's lots of parallels there. And oftentimes especially when you're talking about this element of fear, when we're afraid, we don't say what we want. We're not even honest about whether it's in relationship and or in career and business.
We're not
Countless
who we
people,
are.
countless people are doing the dance in the interview in order to get the offer. And they know, like they've seen all the signs that this might not be the best opportunity for me. But because of the fear of, well, I might lose this one or I might not get another one, let me go ahead and move forward. And then you end up in a role and you're like, this ish sucks, but it's not a surprise. Like it's not a surprise. Like you knew this on the other side of signing, the employment papers, that this is not where you wanted to be. Very rarely are people like, oh my gosh, this was a bait and switch. Like you had conversations, you saw people who kind of showed up in weird ways. You're like, not sure if I want to, be led by X, Y, and Z. And yet you made the decision nonetheless. And we can do that in relationship as well. And or we get into situations and we know this is not serving me. Whatever this dynamic is not working for me. But we don't have the confidence to say, and here's what I want instead. To be able to either renegotiate, to get into alignment, to make whatever shift. We don't have those conversations. And then things erode over time for something that you knew years ago, months ago, wasn't serving. And so, as you think about, for those of you who are listening in, think about how you show up in your love relationship, whether you're dating, whether you're married or whatever, and then look at, are there any parallels in how I'm showing up in the marketplace? Because that parallel behavior could be affecting my coins, my money, my salary, my promotion, my leadership, in my business, my ability to attract clients, all of that. If I show up this way in my love relationship, how I'm going to show up with my client, if I'm y'all are internet marketers and the whole nine, there's a way that you show up to be magnetic to the ideal, customer who's going to want to consume your content. But if I can't be honest and transparent about what I believe, my value, this and that and the other, because, I might lose a customer if I say X or if I say Y, then guess what? Your ideal customer will never find you because you're diluted and you're whitewashed, right? And the same holds true in your relationship. There are real parallels to that. Real parallels to that. Um, yeah. Oh my gosh. Even in the space of generosity, where we talk about generosity in our relationships, oftentimes we give to get. I'm going to do this for you, and then I'm going to expect you to give it back to me. And then if you don't give back to me in the way that I've given back to you, then I'm going to shut down. I'm going to stop giving altogether. Whereas, which is very manipulative. But oftentimes we're doing it out of fear. We don't want to be hurt, this or that or the other, not recognizing that when you're able to come with a radical generosity, not that you're taken advantage of. Like there's a wisdom in not being, throwing your pearls to pigs, as the scripture might say. But when you can come into your relationship with a radical generosity and come into the marketplace with a radical generosity, the world opens up, the world of opportunity opens up. When you guys go to, we'll send you to, to be able to join Emily and Scott's ecosystem. But when you go into their websites, there's lots of content. There's all kind there's a radical generosity around how they serve their customer. And so there's some people who take all that freebie stuff and never come back around. And then there are folks who take that and customers will flow in. It's the same in the marketplace when you're showing up in your career or business, being able to give to your work, give to your business, give to your customer from a generous place, independent of, is there a transaction on the other side of this? But we do it in love. We do it with our spouses. Am I going to get something? If I'm good to her, am I going to get something? If I'm good to him, am I going to get something? And it's a recipe for A, being really unhappy, but B, not being able to develop the juicy, amazing love life that we all really, really crave. So I see a lot of parallels in what you're saying. I think that's really, really valuable.
Well, we're playing footsie under the desk right now.
Well, yeah, you're having a much better experience than
living. You're spitting truth, and we're living it even as you're talking.
Well, so I'm interested with this. For some people, their relationship is a source of refreshment. Like it's the fuel that allows you to go back into the world and slay dragons, right? And then for others, their relationship is a drain. It's a physical drain, it's a mental drain, it's an emotional drain. And y'all have experienced both sides of that in your prior marriages and in the marriage you have now. Now, obviously, in your prior marriages, we didn't go into your personal stories, but you had extreme situations in your prior marriage. So your spouses were on the extreme. But if we're looking at, your basic, basic couple, basic relationship, just basic, random people got some issues, but, pretty decent.
We're all in the same reality.
We're in the same reality. Yes, we're all in the same reality. Keep your relationship as a source of refreshment. Like, what are the elements that need to be in place in a relationship for it to be something that fuels you up, as opposed to being the thing that literally is like sucking the life out of you?
In other words, the dread of going home.
Mm-hmm.
Safety.
Okay.
We have to feel safe and comfortable around each other.
Okay.
And then fun and play.
Mm-hmm.
Either famously or infamously, like you already alluded to, we talk about how a relationship shouldn't feel like work. Well, that's because, we're supposed to represent relaxation and fun and resting in each other. As a man, we think about providing and protecting. It's what we want to do. And a lot of times the focus on that comes at the expense of really acknowledging the power and value and importance of feminine energy, which is to bring fun, joy, play, hospitality, welcoming, nurturing, comfort. Those are the things we all live for on weekends. That's the higher calling. And we as men get to reap the benefits of all that in a relationship if we succeed at providing and protecting and helping our families feel safe. Now, she makes me feel safe by not flaunting that and, running off a bunch of other guys and running double standards on me where she gets to flirt with everybody and I don't, and all those sorts of toxic things. Or, even though I provide for the family, keep everybody safe, it's never enough. Do more. Mm-hmm. More. That's toxic. Or accusing me of things that never happened. And extreme jealousy and stuff like that. That just makes you really feel like this isn't what I signed up for. I think is the way you put it earlier. That's not why we got married. We didn't get married to make each other miserable. And certainly when someone's optimistic and generous and the other one isn't, they can give and think good things and then wake up one day and go, what am I getting out of this relationship? It's not because they were selfish. It's just that, if I was being optimistic and generous instead of trying to be so selfish and taking, don't I deserve what I want, which is for someone to be that way towards me? So instead of just trying to be in this transactional relationship where we're trying to maneuver each other to get what we need, and then begrudgingly give to them what they're asking for in return, shouldn't this be a labor of love instead of fear?
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that.
Anything
you want to add to that, Emily, from a female perspective?
As far as relationships go, I think it's just about being with your best friend and not fearing, that the other person's going to leave, because you're here to stay. And so you should be able to be free to express yourself, and they should be free to express themselves, because, sometimes delicate subjects will come up and you need that freedom to do that. Oftentimes, we already know that oftentimes relationships fall apart because there's no communication. There's no trust. There's just pure fear rather than the love of, I love you enough to let you know I'm here. I know the love enough to know I'm going to hear you. I may not like what you say, but I'm going to listen, and vice versa. And we'll, work through these problems. And once those things are done and gone, then you're free to enjoy the rest of the wonderful, labors, not even labors, more the results of caring for each other and loving life together.
So I love all three of these elements: safety, fun and play, and trust versus fear. Because I think there's a lot of fear in relationships, and we've already talked a bit about that. But I think the question, if you're listening in, your tendency is to be like, okay, am I getting that? Do I feel safe? Do I, am I having fun? Are you doing this for me? The invitation is to think about, okay, for my partner, am I giving that? In this relationship, am I making this a safe space for this person? Or am I always putting them in a place where they're not sure if I'm staying or going? I'm hollering about divorce, or I'm hollering about breaking up, or I'm hollering about this or that, in which case you don't create safety because you're always threatening to withhold your love, right? Am I bringing fun and play into the relationship? Yes, it might be a drag. Yes, he might not be the one that plans the romantic thing or whatever, but am I going to bring that feminine energy? Or as a high achieving woman, do I poo-poo that? And do I look at that as weakness? And do I look at it, that softer side, as something that is not valuable, not recognizing that that's an incredible strength to bring into your relationship? And so am I willing to give that, or am I sitting on the sidelines with my arms folded, waiting to see, is it going to come my way?
I
Right.
think a lot of people are afraid that if they do that, they'll get taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
But here's the thing. And I love what you're saying. And the fact that you're addressing women with this is just massive. Because a lot of times it's expected that the man leads and the woman follows, especially asking her out in relationship. If a woman were to be vulnerable enough to lead with that feminine energy and that optimistic generosity, she might get taken advantage of by a narcissistic manipulator. But if she understands what those red flags are, she can just say no to it. She can stand up for herself, because the self-respect will be the arbiter of that generosity.
Absolutely.
And that optimism. So see, now what happens, though, the unexpected beauty of all this, and I learned this personally, okay? We didn't talk about our exes, but you hit the nail on the head. That's what was going on. I realized that if I'm this optimistic, generous person, it isn't a greater likelihood that I'm going to meet someone who just runs roughshod over that. It's a greater likelihood I'm going to meet someone like me who's also looking for someone like that to be in partnership with, especially if they're sane and have self-respect. So it may be a fear of ours, especially early on as we test the waters with this vulnerability, this good vulnerability where we take this risk. But the return on the investment is you meet more people who are just higher quality mates for you.
Somebody like
quality
yourself.
Choices. Yeah.
So, and if someone's like yourself, you get each other.
Right. Yes. So I found that as I got over myself and stopped fearing and had the courage to lead and say, all right, you know what? I've been hurt before, but you know what? I'm going to treat people right. I'm going to lead with some generosity, but I'm also going to have the headlights on. There's going to be someone at home in here. And if I start seeing, you know what? They're already taking advantage of it. It's mwah. Next.
Yeah.
And I was ruthless about it, but I started, it's like the day I decided I wasn't going to meet and date crazy women. I realized as a direct result of that, something very sobering, which is it wasn't that women who are crazy and wanted to be abusive were going through life without any self-awareness of that. It's that they were looking for the people who would welcome that and put up with it.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they'd like it. Those people know exactly who they are and what they're
Yeah.
about to wreak upon someone else. But they need someone who will put up with it and paint on a smiley face and deal with it. So the day that I started going on dates, going, hey, you know what I'm looking for? Because women always go, what are you looking for? What am I looking for? I'm looking for someone who's sane and mentally stable and not batshit crazy. And the first couple of times I kind of
The basics.
oh God,
the basics.
the basics. And what's funny is it's almost like if you're going to buy someone, if the person who's the salesperson throws the objection on the table before you do, you'll be like, oh, well, there must be a really valid response to something I may object to because they brought it up. They didn't wait for me. They're not hiding from it.
Mm-hmm.
So women, including her, were like, I'm so glad you said that because that proves you're probably not crazy because you brought it up. You broached the subject first. Next thing you know, in my estimation, all women are actually sane and level-headed, not crazy, because that's who I'm meeting, and they're happy to meet me. And next thing you know, I'm meeting more women I get along, and then the fear of that society. Yes, I mean, a lot of this is going out, putting it into practice and trusting that it will work. But, something that's really great, I've never even really put this into words before. I was thinking about this when you were talking. Is that, this optimistic and generous trait that gets taken advantage so much by people who would misuse it and abuse it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the self-respect that really is the arbiter.
It is. It is. You got to trust you. You got to trust you.
That's
you got to trust you. You got to trust you.
Yeah.
You got to trust you. And if I trust me and how I can show up in a situation, you can't take advantage of me.
Right.
But you can show up however you want to show up.
Right.
But I am the one I have agency to respond. I have agency to see. And I think for a lot of folks, that fear comes when they've lost trust. Like, man, I've done these things in the past. I've succumbed to certain kind of relationships. I've messed up here and there. And so I don't trust myself in terms of how I'm going to show up in this next place. So you get to do the work on you first.
And then
when you do the work on you,
to cut them
then
off when they need it.
Yeah, when you do the work on you, then you can relate to someone else. And so that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother interview.
I love how all this ties into how we are in our personal relationships. All of this applies even in the workforce. We fail to let the boss know you can't take advantage of us and mistreat us.
It's the boundaries. It's all, so folks are like, oh, I'm overwhelmed at work. I'm burned out. I've got so much on my plate. You have no boundaries. There's been no conversation. And you think you can't have a conversation. But of course, if I've got stuff that I need to offload as a leader, I'm going to go to the person who I know is always going to get it done. And so I'm always going to come to you because there's never been a conversation from you about your boundary. Whether that boundary is on XYZ date, I leave at 5 o'clock. Why? Because that might be date night for my family. You don't have to necessarily give explanations as to why, but you've created a boundary and an expectation. And because you deliver on the job and you deliver in your career, you deliver in your business or whatever, the marketplace will receive your idiosyncrasies because you deliver. It's like you do good work so that you build relationship and capital in your career. The problem is people work and work and work, and then they don't extract the capital that they've built. And so then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so, this and that. No, that's on you. Those are conversations you haven't had. Those are boundaries you haven't set. And so again, the patterns and the parallels are true because how we do anything is how we do everything, and how we show up. How do they say it? Wherever you go, there you are. Right? And so in the relationship and in the workplace. So this has been great because my hope is that folks are able to see this starts with me. And when I'm able to get honest with how I'm showing up, then I have a clearer perspective on, is there an issue with you? And if there's an issue with you, what do we need to navigate or negotiate through? Right. But oftentimes we're looking external, we're looking external, we're looking external, we're blaming. This need is not being met. And we don't recognize that we're the common denominator in all of that.
Blame
Right.
is the enemy. Victimhood is the enemy.
Yep.
Blame and victimhood are basically synonyms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Where
I agree.
where there's smoke, there's fire. Where there's victimhood, there's blame.
Yeah.
There's blame,
Yeah.
there's victim.
So literally that could be a whole nother, we've got 3 interviews in one, y'all. But in the interest of time, I want to ensure that you have an opportunity to connect to Emily and Scott's world, to connect to their content, to connect to their events, to connect to their podcast, to really be able to engage in how they serve folks. And so you guys have prepared a free gift for listeners. I'll let you talk all about that. And when they do, you'll see someplace on this page somewhere near this video, there's going to be a link or someplace that you connect. Get yourself connected. If what they have said resonates with you, stay in the ecosystem. Stay in the ecosystem. I can't stress it highly enough. Like, you are amazing in whatever career, whatever business, whatever it is that you've been gifted to do. These guys have been gifted in relationship. And I'm a big proponent. You pay for speed. You go figure out who's doing what you want to have done, and you learn from them, and you pay to learn from them. So you're getting something free today, but get that free thing so that you can get in that ecosystem and figure out where you can invest to be able to improve either your dating life, your marriage, whatever. Um, just get connected. So y'all, what you got? And then we're going to drive people to it.
Well, I think you have the URL already set up at the bottom
Yep.
of the page.
Yeah.
But it is programs.deservewhatyowant.com/bonus.
Okay.
And there you'll find, I'm sorry, let's do it differently. Let's do www.keystobliss.com/bonus. KEYSTOBLISS. And there you're going to find an audio that Emily and I did together, where she kind of interviews me, and talking about how to get control of your dating life again. Because I think that really would fit what we talked about a little bit better.
Okay.
And while you're there, you can also get in on Emily's free newsletter. And when you do that, you'll get a book called Dealing with Breakups and 10 Signs He's Serious About Marrying You. And be sure to schedule your 25-minute call with us if you want to get this part of your life handled, the dating and relationship thing, whether you're married or looking for the guy in your life you want to be married to. And the first 25 minutes are free. And if that's the jump start you need to get the relationship you want, that's great. And if we can put a plan of action together to help you get there, we'd be at your service to do that as well.
Absolutely.
Keys2Bliss.com.
So you got lots of resources, y'all. So take full advantage of that. Emily, Scott, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your hearts and your perspectives. We're so grateful for you. Wish you every happiness, every joy. And until next time, bye, guys.